Derek and Margaret spent almost 4 years trying every trainer, trick and piece of advice they could find, and they were still being dragged across roads by their 27-kilo spaniel, Charlie. Now they're enjoying calm, loose lead walks, and the majority of Charlie's triggers have just vanished. So how did Derek and Margaret finally get a loose lead while taking Charlie's list of triggers from 17 down to 2? And what did they do with those remaining 2 triggers? And why didn't they start with their worst problems? All the juicy questions I'm answering today. Hi, it's Katie, dog fanatic, coffee addict, and your guide to stress-free dog walks. If your dog pulls on the lead, barks, lunges, ignores your recall, or wants to say hello to everyone and everything, you're in the right place. There are such simple things you can do to make your dog calm down, listen to you, and behave like a superstar. Nothing will boost your confidence quicker so that you can enjoy relaxing walks with a dog you're proud of. Welcome to Stress-Free Dog Walks. Happy to be sharing Derek and Margaret's story. They are such lovely, lovely people, and things were really hard for them. Every walk with Charlie was stressful. Pulling, frantic sniffing, that constant feeling of being out of control, overwhelmed, nothing working, unsure where to turn. Maybe it sounds familiar. If you're feeling like you've tried everything too, this is going to be a really helpful episode for you as I'm walking you through the steps that they took to finally get a loose lead. So what exactly was Charlie's problem? Well, as Derek famously said, he has more triggers than a Clint Eastwood Western. 17 to be precise. We found that out after going through the first exercise in Club Dogwood. Charlie was strong, nose to the ground pulling. If there was something he wanted to sniff or somewhere he wanted to be, he was going there with Margaret in tow. Charlie even pulled her across roads and she no longer felt safe out there. The more he sniffed, the more he pulled. Charlie also really loved meeting other dogs, but dragged Derek and Margaret to them, barked with frustration when he couldn't get to them, and could be reactive if dogs barked at him. He was hypervigilant too, running around, jumping and barking before a walk, starting walks by pulling and darting from side to side. He'd jump up at people, track scent, whine if they stopped walking, fence fight with the neighbours' dogs, bark at visitors, chase wildlife and cats, explode at the doorbell and bark at windows. Phew, that's a lot of triggers. Now, Charlie is super smart. He learned the training easily at home, but could not replicate it out on walks because he was so distracted. And Derek and Margaret were not new to dog ownership. They're experienced and very switched on, but they recognized that they were missing something. They said, "We have lots of experience with dogs, but somehow we just aren't giving Charlie what he needs to be calm when out and about. We've tried so many different approaches and spent a fortune. We felt that we tried everything, but nothing made a difference." I know that some of you listening might also be months or years into trying different things, and that is not an easy place to be. So respect to you for continuing to seek the solution when so many others just give up. Derek and Margaret obviously didn't give up either, and I'm so glad that they didn't, because now they're enjoying dream walks together. They did it by following the Stress-Free Dog Owner Treatment Plan. That's our 5-part method for stress-free loose lead walks. It started with step 1, decode your dog. We looked at Charlie's list of 17 triggers and prioritized them. One of the first things we recommended as a result of the decoding process was to give Charlie more freedom on walks. Derek and Margaret said that once they understood that Charlie's manic sniffing and pulling was his way of exploring and gathering information, they realized that restricting him was causing frustration. And this made Derek and Margaret question their whole approach and shift from controlling to allowing Charlie the freedom to make his own decisions. They said the biggest change came when we realized that our style of walk wasn't meeting Charlie's needs. It took a big change of mindset for us to let go of our need to be 100% in control of the walk. So they changed his lead and found a quiet location where they felt safe enough to give him more freedom. Freedom to explore safely, plus fewer triggers, slowed Charlie down, and he went from frantic sniffing to potter mode calm sniffing on a nice loose lead. Charlie, like many dogs, finds huge satisfaction in following his nose, and we can't suppress natural behaviours. That's a recipe for frustration, but we can harness them with positive outlets. Derek and Margaret said, the results have been phenomenal. Loose leash walks are becoming the norm. Charlie is much calmer and now has the freedom to explore and check out scents without pulling and dragging. Now that we understood why Charlie was pulling and changed up the walk to prioritise calm, it was time for some practical techniques. Cue step 2, skill up. Derek and Margaret learned 3 sets of skills. Number 1, the calming collection, to take the edge off Charlie's endless, exhausting energy before walks. Number 2, scent venture stations, pauses on the walk to reconnect and keep the lead loose, so they were conditioning Charlie to be on a loose lead even before directly training loose lead walking. And number 3, distraction defeaters, quick and simple techniques to pass on the dogs without meltdowns and start rewarding Charlie for focusing on them instead of pulling. The result? Calm and enjoyable walks. We were able to get Charlie's attention. Charlie was disengaging from triggers and walking away, even around excitable spaniels and coming nose to nose with a cat. Margaret said a few weeks ago he would have been off across the road without hesitation. No drama, and the walk continued. On the route home, it was as if the leash wasn't needed. Charlie choosing to stay within the bounds of the leash. Help, someone has swapped our dog. So with some big wins under their belt already, what next? Step 3, refine and optimize. Remember those 17 triggers that Derek and Margaret took down to 2? Well, let's talk about those remaining 2 now. So many of the triggers simply faded out of existence without being addressed directly, thanks to the calm first approach. The 2 that remained, over-the-top behaviour, meeting other dogs and visitors, could now be bullseyed right in on. Now, most trainers would start by focusing right in like this, but that's a mistake, because if Derek and Margaret had to choose what to focus on right at the start, it probably would have been loose lead walking, which would have been a huge shame. They'd have wasted time and energy and money, because that improved naturally thanks to calm first. Instead, they could leap ahead now to those 2 remaining behaviours that were now much less intense and therefore much easier to address, again thanks to calm first. Charlie was much calmer overall, so he was actually able to listen to Derek and Margaret and follow their cues. His brain was primed for new learning and lasting change in a way that it just wasn't at the start, and that's what made this step so successful for them. Derek and Margaret used counter-conditioning, changing the underlying emotion so that the behaviour changes too. And as Charlie's calmness around other dogs grew, so did his trustworthiness and their freedom. They began going to busier places again where there were a lot more dogs. They also started to see some really lovely, unexpected wins at this point. A calm fireworks season, even though they hadn't worked on Charlie's firework fear directly, it was another happy side effect of the calm first method. All right, so with that hyper-specific plan in place, what next? Step 4, courageous companion. Your confidence grows naturally when you become skilled at training your dog, but the most relaxed dog owners accelerate that process by focusing on their mindset. Because at one point or another, most of us come to realize that it's not just our dogs who need to change, but us too. Turning your attention to your own mindset and well-being makes a huge difference to your happiness as a dog owner and to every other area of life. This is what will allow you to keep pushing towards the next step of progress, even when it feels slightly scary. Derek and Margaret said, although we've been involved with many trainers online and in person, behaviourists and groups over the past few years, this is the first time we've found anyone that recognises and promotes the well-being of the human at the end of the lead. It makes us realise how important our well-being and health is to the safety, care and training of our canine companions. Dog owners like Derek and Margaret, who know the importance of mindset, have more confidence on walks and get better results with their dogs because they let go of the excuses, the perceived failures, and so they overcome obstacles faster, meaning they achieve their goals quicker and with less stress. Which leads us nicely to step 5, life beyond the problem. Enjoying life with your dog, not just after you've solved the problem, but making room for fun and enjoyment during the actual retraining process. Now, this part is different for everyone. For Derek and Margaret and Charlie, it means holidays and finding purpose in community activities. They said, walks are now a pleasure, both for us, but more importantly, for Charlie. The results have been nothing short of brilliant. All right, so those are the 5 steps that Derek, Margaret, and Charlie took. Their journey started with Decode Your Dog and Skill Up, digging deep into understanding Charlie as an individual and developing the toolkit to achieve calmness. The Calm First approach cleared out a lot of behaviours that had developed purely from stress, making it crystal clear where to aim that bullseye focus in step 3. Their confidence soared, they're enjoying walks again, going on holidays, and reaping the rewards of life beyond the problem. They didn't just stumble upon those results, they didn't just get lucky, they made a choice to follow a step-by-step plan that went right to the root of Charlie's behaviour, creating lasting change, not just for him, but for their own happiness as well. And they did it with our personalised guidance, because one thing we know for sure is that every dog is an individual, and what works for Charlie may not work for yours. As I always say, I'm a dog training and behaviour specialist, but I may not be your dog training and behaviour specialist. But if you do want to work with us to get all of this personalised to you and your dog as well, now is the time. Because as this episode goes out, we're opening the doors to our private program, but only for a few days. I'll pop the link in the show notes so you can join the waitlist and see if it's a good fit for you. All right. That's it for our Loose Lead Walking series. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next Stress Free Dog Walks Saturday.